Good morning, channel friends. Franco calls this a ping-pong table. And it may look like a ping-pong table actually. When the camera moves up and down, it's because Franco is nodding. This is our friend Giorgia's table, who asked us to make it elegant for its new spot in her house. It will shift from the children's play area to another spot for dining and other activities. So, she gave us precise instructions. She'd like that wallpaper too, as it's featured in other house areas. It's a beautiful wallpaper from Cole&Son called Sweet Pea. And it has been part of the Cole&Son collection for so many years, and it may be more than 20 years that they have been selling it, but it is always very beautiful and up to date. Firstly, we'll put wallpaper on the top and we will secure the wallpaper with this beautiful moulding. I don't like this raw edge, and I still want to protect it. So a nice and modern woodubend trim, and also echoes the design of the stem and of the flower. It's WUBTR 719, it will be perfect. And she wants the base pepper blue. I can't use my imagination today. I will follow hers, because Giorgia chose this. I'll show you how to flip furniture, like this table, very modern and sleek. And also a bit misleading for the house to create a design piece. Let's start. We're going to prepare the surface by washing with our bar. So water, a nice bucket of hot water, ammonia, we put about a half a glass of it, and baking soda. Again, I put about 4 or 5 tablespoons. I go a little bit by eye. A nice sponge, and we're going to wash everything by scrubbing well to remove any residual dirt and impurities. Maybe there is some tape left, and so on. After washing with this mix, it must be rinsed with clean water. Well done, Emma. You did our bar well. Here is important because we are dealing with underneath, metal legs, and laminated surface. As you can see, to get with one product on all these surfaces is not that obvious. It can be done. It will hold years. The important thing is a good base preparation. Emma did our bar very well, rinsed and dried it well. Now, we start with the color, pure color. When working on metal, ceramic, and plastic, thus very glossy materials, it is crucial to give magic the opportunity to fully grip. So, for the skeptics, magic paint clings on everything. We are the only ones not producing primer, in Italy and out. This means that we provide the guarantee, but you have to respect the guidelines. It doesn't mean acting haphazardly, but respecting the rules. You don't paint if the surface is not dry. You paint with a stable temperature. You don't paint in the sun, in the wind, or in the cold. You need to have everything in place to do a good job. And most importantly, now you apply pure paint. We will use pure paint for the first and the second coat. It's not always needed to dilute it. This table edge, still well glued, has let water in because it likely remained where water could enter. The wood underneath is very ugly. We will make it look perfect by painting both the legs and the wooden part. We paint everything we see here. King brush, which is a nice brush with a huge reservoir, and it traps a good amount of paint. It means less effort is needed. You'll cover the surface well, but above all, this iron will almost look like wood, thanks to its velvety application. Let me show you. To achieve a good application with this brush, load it right. Load the brush with this movement. Then, don't do this, which I see doing all the time. Do you see it? That's dry. You have entered the reservoir. You don't do this. You do this. You load the brush well by using its reservoir and loading the paint well inside. And then you stroke the edge. This is the brush you should have. A brush that can spread paint well on all surfaces, both glossy and raw, loaded with a good amount of color. Don't drag color, spread it. Begin at bezel with brush. Sorry for going into detail, but for professional application, you need to follow professional rules. Let's go. As you can see, I have made it grip well on the painted metal, which is this one, and I am also making it grip well on the aluminum threaded rod. There are two types of metal, but the paint attaches well in one coat won't be enough, but with the second one it will be perfect. Let's repeat, no primers are needed. I go over the wooden part as well, and here, where there's wood, following the wood grain is crucial. The wood goes like this. You can't do that. You struggle and it absorbs more. You should spread the color. Sliding the brush along the grain. A key point is that if applied well, one coat on the wood is enough. And you'll save money. The surface is dry, however. Even though we waited, we are still between March and April. And the temperature is not like the hot one in July. So we sped up the drying with a hairdryer. By blow drying the iron, the temperature immediately got very hot and the paint is dry. Remember, heating well is advisable on smooth, shiny surfaces like plastic and iron. Especially when the weather is slightly humid, also because it is raining today. We apply the second coat with another brush for a nice textured stroke, if you want it. It makes it textured with pure paint. If we were to use diluted paint, like on wood, it doesn't do it. With the textured brush stroke and pure paint, we'll apply a second coat to cover the structure fully. We are witty. Since this table weighs, we also let the second coat dry well and then lay down the protective, because it saves us the trouble of having to flip it a second time. Color and protection. When brushing over, even as second coats, on smooth and shiny surfaces, avoid as much as possible going over too many times. Now I've painted, that's it. I won't go over it again. Because if you haven't dried it well, with the second coat, passing the brush too many times risks removing the paint, which we don't want. So now I peacefully paint, and I don't go over it too much. Enough. I won't go over it again. The coverage is beautiful, perfect. I do the whole structure. It's time for the protective coat. As I said before, we're going to apply it now that the table is upside down, although we still have to do pretty much all the fun stuff. Please remember, the protective coating is essential, not just on the legs, but here too. Because moisture in a porch comes from underneath. So, it is crucial to understand that if a table is outside, not in direct contact with rain, you don't need a water repellent, because it will be protected, but still outside. It is the case to protect it with satin protective even if there is no wear and tear nor water falling. I recommend a soft brush, Elizabeth, and the diluted satin protector, about 30%, a little more diluted than usual, because there is wood and we want smooth gliding. We'll definitely apply 2 protective coats on the wood, aluminium and lower parts. We use the Elizabeth brush for its softness, spreading it everywhere. A soft brush that helps in applying the product smoothly and velvety. And because I have screws there and different kinds of materials contrasting, with a brush like the Elizabeth, which is a little bit thicker than the other brushes we use for applying the protective paint, it will definitely make my job much easier. Here you go. Do you see how the color changes when the protective paint is applied? It becomes vivid. A nice, full color. Be careful not to drip or run. The only thing we dislike about makeovers. One fundamental thing for achieving a beautiful finish is to smooth out and remove all the marks that the brush could leave. It's clear that if we do this, it will cause marks. We must ensure a velvety, smooth stroke, letting the protective coat self-level, leaving no marks. We've cut 3 precise paper strips for the table. Why 3? Because this table's width didn't let us use just 2 wallpaper strips, right? The roll is 52.50 centimeters wide. Instead, this table is about 1.1 to 1.2 meters wide. So we had to do 3 repositionings. We were able to mark half and lie a first central strike, and then do the other 2 on the sides. I like this because applying wallpaper on a table to be protected with tempered glass requires the edges finish to be beautiful. It leads us to make a fold and go over the edge, so having 2 repositionings helps. Now, step by step, don't lose track so you can understand how to do it. Cut the stripe, now we move it in apply glue. We spread it all over the table. A special glue to use on paper-made wallpaper. No problems, it dries slowly. We use this one from Saratoga. Upholsterers often make much glue as they're used to applying it on walls, thus they proceed with high weights and measurements. We have to produce very little because we will need enough for this table. We'll create very little glue just so we don't waste it. A little package like that can last you for a lot of makeovers if you don't make walls. So we put the water in a bowl and go by feel. However, for 9 liters of water, how much do you use? For 10 liters, they say to put the whole package, which is 200 grams. So this whole package is meant for 10 liters. You could do an entire room, or the walls, so we just need a little. Let's say the bowl is about 250 grams. It might need 5 grams of powder. Very little, so we don't weigh it, because we don't want to scare you or give you the impression that it's difficult, because it's not. She's going to stir directly with the brush, or do you want the spoon?
I add it little by little, otherwise it clumps. So, I add a bit and start to dissolve it. It might seem liquid at first, but over time it thickens and becomes gel-like.
Here, take the time to do this because it's important not to make lumps. All right. On a shiny, smooth surface like this, wallpaper will stick well. You need a nice smooth glue with no lumps, though. It may lump. If it does make lumps, don't throw it away. Either whisk it or strain it through a sieve. Like the fine plastic mesh ones you use in the kitchen. Emma has made a perfect glue, not a single lump, and she spreads it over the surface. She uses this beautiful brush called Maggie because it's wide, smooth and velvety, right? However, we must perhaps try to be careful and not leave any build-up. We must be as velvety as possible. Then, yes, we press with the spatula and spread it very well, but the less build-up there is, the better. As Elisa said, we must apply an even layer, not too thick. It's true that this is a glossy surface, so it doesn't absorb the glue, but you mustn't overdo it. Emma, you start and I'm holding it up. You must go close to the edge. So, I'm staying within our marks. I am at the edge. I pull and lift a bit. We should be there. I begin flattening with my hand before using a spatula. Sure, it's easy to lay the carp flat. So give it a try as it's simple and fun. Moreover, this paper is beautiful, but not at all delicate. Often, people think that wallpaper made of paper are too delicate. I pull it up and reposition it. However, I assure you these, from the Cole&Son line, are truly doable in shades. In fact, even going over edges, we don't damage it. Mind you, this is part of an old production method where, in addition to printing the first part of the color, they also printed the shades. Indeed, by running one's hand over it, one can feel the color laid by imprimatura. It's an incredible, very old wallpaper from the Cole&Son collection. Emma, can I go over the edge? Absolutely. Now we make sure that there are no bubbles anywhere. Check that it is nice and perfect, and make sure that the edges also stick well to the surface. We finished attaching the central part. Now we'll spread glue on both sides, and we'll proceed with joining the others. Let's reposition. Come on, Emma, pull it a bit. We were amazed by this paper, weren't we? Because it has very little waste and is also very easy to apply. So I'd say if you pull a millimeter, we're good. How are you doing? Here is good. So let's bring it as close as possible. We absolutely try not to create, of course, any spaces. I am comfortable because this paper is strong and the glue is wonderful. We are almost set. Let's check, then do corners. After carefully folding the corners, I proceed to trim with a very sharp blade, meticulously following the edge of the table. We'll put a moulding here, covering everything completely, like precision matters. And we keep the strip, because it could be perfect for lining drawers or for making drawer fronts. Why not? It's time to apply the trim. It must be heated, unrolled, and colored first. I can't just apply it and then color it on the paper. This is a question you often ask. Why color the moulding before putting it on the support? When the support is either already colored or very delicate. In this case, I could use a spatula to try not to stain the paper, but should I take the risk? Absolutely not. So we put a nice cloth on our table, some cardboard, and with a hairdryer we unroll the trim. The trim code is WUB TR719. Thank you. You can leave it on the floor. If you don't have a heat gun like me, Remember, you can use a strong hair dryer. Or if not, put it in the oven. You can take a baking tray, turn the oven to 200 degrees, 180 degrees, turn it on. Put the trimming for a moment with baking paper and heat it up. Once you take it out, it is even easier to work it because it will have the support of the baking tray that keeps it warm. Try it. This is a method that Joe also uses when he has to work on moldings for a long time. So I can assure you that the oven method is not bad at all when you don't have a heat gun. Unroll it slowly, so that. Oh good, lay it flat, go, go, go. You see, easy. She has to make it flat. So, as it warms up, you unroll it. She shouldn't force things when it's not coming, as it could break. Like now, you see. We slowly unroll it. But when it is ready, he shows you. No more humps and you can mold it. As you can see, it's unrolled and flattened. So now I can color it without problem. Next step, with glue, small brush, some water and nails. As the surface is long and I'll add a few nails. I'll show you how. First, we take the chosen color, which is again the pepper blue. So for the trim, we will use the same color that we used on the legs. Use a pointed brush, which is even better for painting inside the molding, or a 30 brush. You can see that one coat is enough, always with pure paint. Adding a beautiful trim to the makeover will secure the wallpaper and will be a nice finish, but will make the table very special. But above all, will preserve the wallpaper from wear and tear for many, many years. The wallpapers used on tables, furniture, and inside lifts are beautiful, but if they don't have a block to finish off the corners, the edge often either lifts or peels. In short, the wallpaper will definitely last less. Always remember that to make the wallpaper last, it must also be finished in the corners. The trim is warm. It's still warm thanks to the heat gun, and it dries very fast. It's still soft. Look at it. If I pick it up, it remains soft, showing that as long as the frieze is soft, it's malleable. With this blush, it was very easy because by going right into the ways of the trim, it took me very little to finish. Let's carefully check the edges and proceed. We'll do all of them first. It's time to make the front side and teach you how. We have already done the two smaller sides and the back. Why? Because before we show it to you, we want to try it ourselves. Honesty always pays off. Because each molding changes and each molding can be more malleable, it resists bending more because it retains more heat. Sometimes there are very thin trims. They heat up immediately but cool down quickly and can break more easily. Before showing how it's done, I wanted to test it myself. We've done the two sides and also cut the edge at a 45-degree angle, as if it were an anvil. Afterwards, you'll see how to touch up perfectly without noticeable unevenness. As a precaution, having tried it, we painted also the back part of the trim. Because even if the table's edge is level with the molding's height, due to manual adjustment, it might rise slightly by 1 millimeter, revealing the dark brown part of the trim. So, by coloring it, this will not be noticeable. Every time you need to cut a molding, even for carving, remember it's better to heat it up, so you won't struggle, because inside it has some grooves and it will be easier. I must do the under corner, not perfect. First, I'll make the molding adhere. Then I will touch it up with heat, abrasive sponge and the different details to make it perfect. But let's start by giving a primary shape to the edge. Emma heats up, and she heats both the front and the back. Please make sure to gently warm it up, yes, but pay attention not to burn the trim. That should already be enough. I go just a bit higher than the drawing. You see the drawing ends here, and I start to make the first cut at 45 degrees. It won't be extremely precise, of course, but don't worry, because once we apply it with glue and nails, it will be finished off and will look great, very precise. Do you see how it's precisely cut? Now, let's carefully heat the entire trim along its entire length. We apply glue, then the trim to the table. What about the final part? Should we do it later? Yes, it's best. I keep my glue near. I use the Univille. Upside down, so I'm sure to use everything and I won't struggle. Keep the container close by with a brush and also a bit of water. You know, with the hot heat gun and the warm trim, the glue dries very quickly. So I would stop there. Maybe we should apply the last part of glue later. With the small glass with water, I start to slightly spread glue on the moulding to provide a wider adhesion. Okay, and going halfway makes me feel much more confident, because if the glue dries too much, it becomes a problem, doesn't it? Instead, I only put through here, more or less in the center of the moulding, and I drain the brush well. Don't worry if a little bit of glue comes out, because it comes off with a wet cloth. And it absolutely does not stain the wallpaper, don't worry. All right, and I'm obviously going to put some glue on the corner as well. There you go. So I'll just glue the little corner here, and also here. I will use my nail gun, which has staples of about 1 centimeter, and this part is beautiful because the entry head of the staple won't be visible. This method has become a guarantee for me. Remember, here you have to be as well as extra precise. You see, press, be precise, and not go over the edge of the table. Emma, we are too high up here, because the glass will be placed later, and so if you go over the level, the glass could break the trim. As you can see, there is no external nail head, and later I will go over it with a brush and pepper blue, and you absolutely cannot tell that I nailed it. I'm using this little tool to help me not to go over the edge of the table. If you don't have it, use your hand and be sure not to go over it. Emma, warm up a little bit. This way we can be more precise. Excellent. The moulding retains heat for a while, but then releases it, and when it does, it becomes hard again. Therefore, you should always remember that you must be precise, but never forget that the moulding, to be beautiful, should adhere 100% to the surface. It has to be just right. If I can see the adhesion groove, I don't like it. This is the first corner, the left one. Sandpaper, better a sponge, a thin one. And I immediately give it a slight rounding, also because it is better if the angle is never sharp. Say you pass by and get stuck with the t-shirt. Second, provide the grain. So go here and work the groove so that it is nice and precise. We do this the other way around. Work on the groove for me. Here we are. And even if it now seems very ugly to you, just look now. A tiny, tiny brush. Just a little drop of pepper blue. See? It is perfectly joined. So the left and right side where you see the line, and I keep going. I'll now brush, using this brush, to touch up the spots where I nailed. So it's true that you can't see it, but look how easy it is to go with a small brush and touch up any places where I nailed. Now Emma and I check all the holes. We check that everything is perfect and precise and then protect. But we still have to wait for the glazier, who tempered the glass, because Giorgia wants a glass that is rounded and tempered, of course, because it must not break, and we are waiting for him to show her the finished table.
What do you think? I love it. It's a perfect makeover.
This will go in her house.
An annex.
A beautiful place with views and the greenery, ideal for studying, homework, or working remotely.
Where flowers fit well. But look, is it true that you will also put this paper on the porch? Actually, not exactly this wallpaper. It's still one of your Cole&Son ones, always flower themed, but with some wisteria.
And I will show you. The shades are perfect. They connect perfectly. This is a very beautiful wallpaper because, I don't know if you know, I assume you do, it is hand printed. There are several passes of ink that provided these colors.
I love this three-dimensionality. Seen on a wall, a vertical surface, it will evoke an orangery.
Exactly, and it is very beautiful as it goes upwards. In fact, at the back, it is almost as if it were hanging from a grid. These are exceptional wallpapers. Let's say they're also beautiful as they link to a vintage heritage of wallpapers. Retro and always in vogue, in a new, modern house they look beautiful. So listen, we're going to bring this table to your porch in a while and I hope you like it.
I will see you at the next makeover. Goodbye.